Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dale Cristinzio from the Stakeholder team at FDA. I'm going to give everyone a minute or two as I notice people are still filing into the meeting room. And we're going to just give everyone one moment before we begin. Okay, it looks like everyone is in the meeting that was in the waiting room before. Again, my name is Dale Cristinzio. I'm the Director of Stakeholder Engagement at FDA. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I have Dr. Rob Califf, our FDA Commissioner, as well as Dr. Janet Woodcock, our Principal Deputy Commissioner, with us today. Thank you so much. We're going to start out with opening remarks from both of our principals, followed by a QA session. And again, today's call is to discuss the proposal for our Unified Human Foods Program. So Dr. Califf, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dale, and hi, everybody. Tried to dress up today in preparation for July 4th. I hope everybody's feeling patriotic and optimistic about the future, and we certainly feel that way about the Unified Human Foods Program, otherwise known as HFP. You'll hear it referred to that during discussions. And this now includes a new model for the Office of Regulatory Affairs, or ORA as it's commonly known. These additions that we've made to the proposal that was announced earlier this year are meant to enhance the coordination, prevention and response activities across FDA and enable us to better support the public health mission, of course. The cross-cutting working group that's been working on this is made up of mostly relatively junior or mid-level rising stars across the agency from all the different elements that are involved. So it really represents people doing the work in a whole series of functional and operational areas. They've been hard at work for the past several months. And this is predominantly where the concepts that we're going to discuss today came from. And, again, this represents what used to be known as CIFSAN, or currently known as CIFSAN, OFPR, ORA, and other elements of the FDA. The human foods landscape is obviously really rapidly evolving. It's been a real interesting time for me as I've learned more and more about the complexity and the risks and the opportunities in this area. And so we're really having to streamline our effort given the limited budget, but also enhance the areas that we think are most important. We've been listening. We've gotten a lot of feedback from all over the place: employees, stakeholders, politicians, food officials, you name it. And we really think this is a once-in-a-generation chance to get the agency ready for what's going to be a very important time in our history of trying to feed the population of the United States with nutritious and plentiful food, but also a major responsibility for the world population that's now 8 billion people, that we handle this well, particularly with our expertise in the U.S. in terms of technology and what it can deliver. So that brings about the proposals today that include a number of changes in ORA. Remember that, most of what we've announced already had to do with essentially creating a human foods program, which means that the Center for Food Safety and Nutrition and the Office for Preparedness are in response are going to go away and be merged into this human foods program. And always important to mention, this doesn't mean any loss of jobs, doesn't mean any physical displacement. It's really a rearrangement of the operations of the organization and the way we work with each other to meet the public health need. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Woodcock, who's been leading this change management group. to go through the new recommendations and the external in response to the working group and the external evaluation from Reagan Udall. Janet?
Thank you. Hi, folks. So here I'm going to go through the structural changes first and then talk a little bit about some of the functions that we plan to establish. So structurally, we are going to establish ORA, the field organization's core mission, as conducting investigations, inspections, and imports for all the FDA regulated products, including foods. And these assignments to do these inspections are planned in partnership with the Human Foods Program and the other centers as appropriate. And the new deputy commissioner will have oversight of the foods budget, including that part which is expended in ORA. We also are across the board for the field organization. We're going to merge their compliance function into the Human Foods Program or this other center's compliance program because we had duplicative efforts there. So we wish to streamline this process. We think it'll make it faster, but also more efficient. In addition, we're going to realign the 8 human and animal food laboratories in ORA into the Human Foods Program. These 8 labs will team up with the 4 large labs in the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition to form a unified laboratory enterprise under the Human Foods Program. Now, we'll make sure that the CVM and the chief scientist and so forth also have input into this. But importantly, this capacity of this joint group, the laboratory capacity, that will then be able to be joined through our integrated food safety partnership program with the capacity in the state laboratories so that we have a unified approach to dealing with the issues we face every year, and we can do that as a team. We're going to transfer the certain functions that are in the Office of Security Emergency Management that's in the Office of Operations at FDA, move that to ORA, the emergency management function, so that that's unified with what the field does in like hurricanes and various other types of emergencies. Now, we previously shared that we're going to move all the functions so that we're scattered throughout CFSAN, OFPR, and ORA for state, local, tribal, and so forth partnerships into an Office of Integrated Food Safety System partnerships in the Human Foods Program. So this will be a unified office. It won't do all the functions. Standards development will still be done by the scientific programs, but it will be a single point of contact for all those partners, and will be interfaced with them. We're reviewing certain support functions across the field, and we'll have to realign those to support what is moving out of ORA into the centers. And we recently announced that we're going to really try to work on better retention of our investigators by moving them to Title 21 and seeing if we can't pay them more adequately to improve our retention and also recruitment. Now, we also are doing some functional changes that people are very excited about. One of them is that we plan to do formal risk assessment across our 3 risk areas. Those are the nutrition area, the microbial safety area, and then the area of food additives, contaminants, and all that, dietary supplements and innovation, and plan to do risk prioritization across all of that and be very public with what we plan and are able to do each year, given our capacity and what we will not be able to work on or can only give more limited efforts to. So there's a great deal of excitement about this because this will provide a unified framework for the program to work under. Secondly, we're going to unify a lot of surveillance functions that have been scattered around into an Office of Surveillance and Risk Assessment. in the human foods program. And these surveillance activities include intel from the border, intel from inspections, our adverse event reporting and product quality reporting for foods, and other consumer complaints like that. Other types of inventories, our management of the food facility inventory, both domestically and internationally, and so forth. All this intel will be put together in this office, and we will really overtly be functioning on surveillance of the food supply and how we're doing, where the risks are, and so forth. So we also have posted draft org charts that are proposed so that people can look at those. And we are in hopefully the last stages of the recruitment for a deputy commissioner position to run this program. So I'd like to turn things back to Dale there.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Califf and Dr. Woodcock. As mentioned at the top of the meeting, this video is being recorded. We plan to place it on our YouTube page within the next few days. As such, I just want to remind everyone that this is a stakeholder call. It's not meant for media. If you would like to ask a question of our FDA principals, you can do so by raising your hand or placing your question directly into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And I'm happy to get people started. It does look like we have one hand raised already. So I'll start with Karen Ross. Karen, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, did that work?
Yes, and please
Great.
tell us where you're from.
Sure. Karen Ross from California. I want to thank you for doing this call so soon after the announcement was made yesterday and for some of these additional details. I don't really have a question, but I do, first of all, want to commend the commissioner for his taste in bow ties. That's a good way to make us all cheer up today. But I also want to thank the commissioner and Dr. Woodcock. This is a huge undertaking. I think this is a significant step in the right direction from the earlier announcement this year. But I also appreciate what a huge undertaking this is. And just as someone who's working on cultural change within my own organization, I really appreciate the level of employees, the career staff who have contributed to this, that they've been engaged. I think that's a really positive step for how this will succeed in the future. There's a number of things here I'm especially interested in, but I especially want to call out and say thank you for identifying an integrated way in the partnership office for a single point of contact. That has sometimes led to a lot of confusion and crossover redundancies at a time of crisis. And I just think this is a very positive step. And I just wanted to be able to put that on the record and say, thank you. I recognize and agree with the commissioner. I think this is a golden opportunity that doesn't come that often. And I think it can only lead to improvements for how we all work together to prevent foodborne illnesses. So thank you.
Hey, really appreciate those comments, and I hope the bow tie does cheer a few people up. I know, and I'll just note. First of all, I want to emphasize. I always feel like I need to start out just by pointing out again that according to The Economist, we're tied with Denmark and Canada for the safest food in the world. So we're not starting out in a terrible position, but so much was recognized that could be improved. And when you look at this with something like 600,000 entities that we're all jointly supposed to be regulating, there's no way to think about this other than sharing information and reducing redundancy, because there's just not enough human beings to do it. And technology, where it is, we got this great chance. And then the final thing is this ICMG, as it's called, this working group, really is working hard, and people on the ground are involved. I still, though, fully recognize that as we announce these things, these are big changes for people that have hard enough jobs already, and they're going to have to make these changes in the midst of also getting their work done. So I don't want to make light of the the impact this has and the degree to which we're counting on people to pull together.
Thank you.
Well, while we wait for another question, I have one for both of you. This is a huge endeavor, and I wondered what you think is going to be the biggest hurdle to fully implementing the new plan and what you think stakeholders can do to help us.
Janet, I'll let you take that one.
Okay, well, we have a giant task ahead of us this summer. So I've just asked for everyone their forbearance. We have to crosswalk every single individual. This is going to be changes across the agency. I haven't gone into all the changes, but there are many more. So every single unit practically in the entire agency is going to be impacted by this, and thousands of individuals will be either moving themselves or their unit will be moving or part of their unit will be moving. So we have to do all that plus the budget, apportion the budget, have it all correct and submit it to our agency organization gurus to check all that, as well as the budget people, before we send it up the chain for a long process. So I think we need your forbearance in knowing that we have to go through this process. We hope to get a leader in and soon, and have that person assist with all this. And we're also recruiting for a new head of our field organization. So these are activities that we hope to all accomplish this summer, and sometime in the fall, be able to submit the package to HHS and go through the further arduous government process to get the reorganization approved. So I would ask everyone to be mindful of what we are doing. And we won't get everything right the first time, but we hope to get all the major pieces in place and have a very functional system. And I will say the Human Foods Program team who is now doing this and setting up this organization is pretty excited about this.
I'll just add, first of all, let me just say, because a lot of people are probably wondering, we did get a good field of applicants for the deputy commissioner, and we're down to the final interviews now. So the selection, will happen very soon. And as soon as that selection is made, of course, we'll be announcing it. But we're also, it just so turned out that the leadership at the time we need to make this change was, ready for retirement after long service at the FDA. So we have this other opportunity to also appoint a person to head up the field organization, previous known as ACRA, Associate Commissioner for Regulatory Affairs. If you know somebody out there, the applications are open. We are getting applications, but they're open. So if you know someone who loves logistics and wants to work in a transformative time for something that means a lot to the country, tell them to apply. This is a great chance.
Great. I see we have another hand raised. Jeff Ventura, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Hi, folks. Former FDAer here, Jeff Ventura, now representing the Council for Responsible Nutrition. I had a question about supplements and what looks to me to be the new sort of organizational chart block in the org chart. How does this affect supplements, this new office, or will it?
Yeah, why don't you have a comment to make, but I think you may give something that's more direct answer.
Yeah, supplements are regulated as food, so they're staying within the foods program. They will be subject to the change really is that they're going to be subject to the same risk assessment, across the board risk assessment and risk prioritization. Of course, we often have semi-urgent responses that always have to be factored in, and we have illegal products that we have, that have contained drugs in them and so forth that we have to go after. Those things are sort of will be status quo. We don't have additional resources for any of this program. I think everyone on this call is aware of the position of the Congress with regard to the federal budget. And so we're planning this within the bounds of the current resources that we have available.
Yeah, I think a lot of people know this is one that bothers me a lot because frankly, we just need more funding. So the place in the organization, I think Janet clarified, but when we talk about priorities, of course, that's always relative to the funds that are available for specific things. And, this is an enormous industry now with just a few people at FDA working on it.
Mhm.
And we can't fix that by rearranging the deck chairs here because everybody, is busy with something they're doing. But as this industry has grown, I think there's some really good stuff out there in supplements, but there's also some marginal or stuff that doesn't make a difference. And we're continuing to try to prompt Congress to do a bit more in this area.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for the question, Jeff. Next, we have Joe Skimeka from IDFA.
Thank you. My name is Joe Sameka, and I'm with the International Dairy Foods Association. I want to thank Dr. Califf and Dr. Woodcock for their continued transparency and inclusiveness of the stakeholders as they are going through this process. And I think we can all recognize that the design portion is probably the easier portion. The more challenging aspects will be the implementation. As you said, Dr. Woodcock, it's challenging enough to continue to doing the work that needs to be done, and yet go ahead and formulating and implementing a change. But I have not heard a lot talked about the cultural changes that will be required to really make a difference in the new organization. You mentioned how risk assessment will be more integral in some of the programs and the need to be more to prioritize the work because there's more here that could be done. So I would love to hear if there is a definitive plan for addressing the cultural change that will have to happen with the employees of FDA.
Rob, I'll be happy to address that. Yeah, what we're doing right now, we have done the design, we're going down to the fine grain design, and we're focused relentlessly on the crosswalk because we have to submit this enormous package. Once we submit it, it's going to take 4 to 6 months to get through the process. So after we submit it, hopefully we can then turn to, because we can't implement until it's approved, right? But we can practice, and we can also work on SOPs and procedures, and we also can do a lot of the cultural work. Of course, we're starting with some of the cultural work now with the case for change and the future vision and explaining what we're trying to do. And I don't know your point of view and where you're coming from on the culture, but part of what we're talking about is, for example, the role of surveillance, the role of inspections, and I know surveillance, I've heard from some people, they're worried about that word, but we're talking about epidemiology surveillance, not trench coat surveillance. Okay, we're talking about utilizing the findings that we have out in the world for understanding the state of an industry, and then where we need to assist or provide education or whatever to make sure that industry is able to conform to whatever the standards might be. So, and that combined, I think, with the risk assessment and clarity, what I heard from most of the staff and many of the outside stakeholders, clarity on decision rights, all this is being clarified with this design. So it's very clear who's on first and what we're going to do, but then how we're going to do it, which is what you're asking about, and what the purpose is, are things that we're going to explore much more deeply once we get this crosswalk done.
Great. Well, we only have a couple minutes left. I thought I would just end with one final question for our principals. Dr. Califf, Dr. Woodcock, we've talked a lot about food safety through this reorg, and recently we've also been spending a lot of time on nutrition And is there anything you want to talk about or explain to our stakeholders about the new proposed Center of Excellence for Nutrition in this reorganization?
Well, we think nutrition has been vastly underserved in terms of the budget for FDA. And I think the great hope is that this new center will elevate it in prominence and lead to more efficiency, so we can then pick up steam to attract more funding. And of course, within it will also be the Center for Essential Foods that will include infant formula and medical foods, which is going to be a rapidly growing area, as a lot of people know, with the onslaught of chronic disease in this country and the decline in life expectancy. Better nutrition is sort of a cornerstone that we really need. I'd also stress chemical safety, which I think the public is more concerned about that than almost anything else, and yet it's a small effort at FDA with a mighty mission. With as the technology is getting better, we can measure more things, and the more we see, the more questions it raises that need to be addressed in a scientific way, which of course scientific tools are getting better and better, so we should be able to address them if we have the right resources and talented people that we hire. So both these areas, I think, are areas that we want to elevate and make more prominent in the overall FDA effort.
Any other closing comments from either of our principals before we close the call?
Well, I thought Janet did a great job of addressing the culture question, but of course, we all know that when it's easy to sort of mention culture as an issue, and then you get into the specifics, it gets complicated in a hurry. And I do, as you interact with FDA people, I hope you will keep in mind the complexity of what they're grappling with. And, you know, I think a lot of you are in similar positions where you know that there's a balance between the role in compliance and enforcement versus the role in education and sharing. And, you know, it's always a matter of trying to strike that balance, and that comes off as, you know, people have different views of how culture affects that. So we're pretty excited. I think we're on our way, got a lot of work to do over the summer, and really looking forward to working with you all. We'll keep you updated as we go along. I'm sure we'll run into some surprises here as we work through this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Califf. Dr. Woodcock?
No, I'm very, I'm happy to talk to anybody at any time. So should you have questions.
Thank you so much. All right, well, that concludes today's call. Thank you so much for dialing in, and we look forward to engaging with you in the future.